Hello my dear friends, how are you all? I hope that you all are fine and doing well in this Omicron pandemic. Please follow the guidelines as governed by the government and follow those rules. So we are meeting after a very long time, so I hope that you are fine. So let's start the chapter of history. We are picking up the new chapter, that is chapter number 11, Paths to Modernization, and it is very interesting chapter. So this chapter covers the portion of East Asia. You know that East Asia, this vast is the Asia and the eastern part of Asia, and we will discuss about the major three countries there. So the countries which we are going to discuss in this chapter is number 1, China. We will discuss Chinese history, then we will proceed further, and the similar country of China like Japanese, we will discuss Japanese history. So Japan we will cover up, and finally we will pick up the story of the Korea. What happened at Korea actually, and what were the consequences of it. So you have to understand this chapter very importantly, very properly, because we all know that in today's era the prosperity of Japan is very famous. We all know that if we are in USA and Africa, wherever we are, we always praise Japan because of the technical advances, the skilled crafts that we see there. And China is major trade exporter, major country in the world, and militarily it's very strong and many other aspects. Korea is also doing good, except North Korea, Kim Jong, but South Korea is a very peaceful country. So let's move on with this topic and start the chapter. So what happened in East Asia in the early 19th century? Early 19th century in the sense I am talking about 1801 something, these years. So in East Asia there was a dynasty called Qing dynasty. The Qing dynasty was there who ruled the East Asia, and this dynasty is so big, is so stable that we cannot imagine that. And this dynasty dominated whole Eastern Asia, and it's a very good dynasty. You can see the political system there. But what happened there, after few years, Japan emerged as a good nation. At that time when there was Qing dynasty, Japan is a small isolated nation. It lies in the eastern part, and it is a very small isolated group of islands. It means that it is not prospering like that way. It is just a small isolated nation, group of islands, which doing well, which was governing themselves in a small site. But what happened after some years, China was in turmoil. Chinese people felt so many difficulties because Japan started emerging as a big nation. Not a big nation, but as a military nation. He just occupied them. So in China, if I say, the whole country was in turmoil, was in immense difficulties, and there was a civil war in the nation. Civil war means that the people of the country fighting themselves with each other in that nation also. And the Qing dynasty gradually removed. So Japan here will grow and become prosper. And what happened? Japan not only captured China, he captured China in 1894. You can imagine, China is a vast nation and Japan just a small isolated country. And that Japan occupied, conquered the China, that vast China. So we can imagine that what was the vast consequences of it. The Japanese people have so morality, has so pride in themselves, and that was the result. That was because of this confidence they occupy China. And not just China, their journey doesn't stop here. They move on and they move further. Now what happened in 1895, just 1 year later after capturing China, they captured Taiwan also. Taiwan in nowadays is a very famous country. So they captured Taiwan also. And not only Taiwan, in 1905, the Japanese people, the country of Japan, conquered Russia. and Russia was the major economic power, major country, vast country. Nowadays also Russia is very vast country, and these Japanese people occupied Russia also in Russo-Japanese War, and that war was fought on the land of China, and they occupied China, Russia also. And in 1910 these Japanese people conquered Korea also. So these nations are now under control of Japan. What were the nations? What were those nations? Number one is China, then Taiwan, then Russia, and then Korea. Such nations. You can imagine what was the drastic condition at that time. But what happened? We all know that more of anything is not good. We have to keep the matter in sufficient quantity. If you are working more and more, this is harmful to our health. So the Japanese people was in an imperialistic manner now. What are the thoughts of Japanese people? They were now imperialistic. They just wanted to occupy more and more territories, and that was the result. They fought with America also, which was known as the Anglo-American War. Anglo-American War. And to defeat America is not easy. America is very strong. Nowadays it is also very strong. So Anglo-American War, and what was the result of that war? Japan was defeated. But what was the story of that? Actually what happened? Japan initially took the step. Japan started the bombing in the Pearl Harbor. There was a harbor in America. So Japanese people started the bombing in the Pearl Harbor, and as a result the American people do the bombing in Hiroshima. We all know that it is a very famous incident, and Nagasaki. These two areas of Japan was being bombed by America, and as a result these nuclear bombs were so damageable that nowadays some children are born with some traits which was caused by the nuclear bombs. For example, the hands are not working, the eyes are not opening. So these are the conditions that we can see in the students of the Japan, the children of the Japan nowadays. So these were their consequences. So Japan finally was defeated by the America. Now what happened? The Qing dynasty of China was defeated. So now in China there was reforms. Some initiatives was taken, some political parties were established in China, and they prospered themselves. They built a huge nation state. They dominate some equalities, the inequalities which was the result of the dominance of Japan and America, because China was in dominance of America also in European countries, not America but in European countries. They captured China also, like India was being colonized by the Britishers. In the same way China was also being colonized. So with that colonization, the feeling of inequality spread in the whole nation, in the whole China. So now the people of China was discovering a way to tackle these problems. So what happened now in China, if I say, when the Qing dynasty of China falls, the whole nation of China, the whole nation of China was being in the civil war. So the civil war happened there. Civil war, you know, the war that is being done in the same nation, inside the nation. So the people of China done the civil war just to hold the power, just to capture the territories. So there was a party called Communist Party of China. Communist Party of China. It is a very famous party, and it is called CCP party, and nowadays also in China you can see the Communist Party of China ruling there. So in 1949, across 1948 or 1949, the Communist Party of China won the civil war, and they took the position of the power. They hold the power, and they introduce some changes because they want to settle themselves in a good atmosphere, because the condition of China at that time was not so good. So they want to settle themselves, they want a good economic power, they want to establish a good nation state. So these are the some traditions because they want to settle themselves. So this was the main reason. And Japan also want to cope up with that, because Japan was defeated by the Anglo-American forces, and nowadays we can see Japan as the major economic power. So Japan initially took the steps to make the nation good. So Communist Party of China was established there after winning the civil war in 1949, and they took changes. So this was the introduction that we can see in the chapter, and after that these nations, China, Japan, Korea and so many other nations, developed the sense of nationalism. They took pride on themselves. So there was a very famous personality in Japan, if I talk about, was Fukuzawa Yukichi. In Japan there was Fukuzawa Yukichi. He was in Japan, a revolutionary, and Satsuri was also there, a philosopher was there whose name was Satsuri. And Sun Yat-sen also in China. These two are in Japan, and Sun Yat-sen was in China. So these all are the personalities, and so many other we will discuss in later videos. Till then, this was a brief introduction of the chapter. We see that how Japan organized themselves. It was the small island nation, and how he captured the territories, how he captured Russia, China, Korea, and what were the consequences of it when the Qing dynasty of China was removed, how they managed themselves, how they managed the resources, the peoples, and how they organized themselves. And as a result we can see Communist Party of China and so many other. So this was a little bit of introduction. Then we will discuss the writing system there, because the literary part was very famous in China. When I will teach you, you will see there that in Japan people purchase a book with the money. Not purchase, they even rented the book with the money in which they can eat a bowl of food. So instead of having a lunch, a good lunch, they are spending those money in renting a book. So you can imagine that reading was very famous in Japan. The literary culture was very famous in Japan, and it has a very rich tradition also. The culture, the tradition of Japan is very rich. So we will discuss later, and how the Tokugawa family. In Japan there was also a family which is called Tokugawa family. What was this family? What was its history? We will discuss in the next video. Till then, read the chapter. Till then, goodbye. Thank you.